Professor Server, thank you for this interview. The leader of DUI, Ali Ahmeti, has sent a letter to you as well, to which you answered briefly with 1 yes and 2 no's. What are your arguments for the answers?
Well, on the language question, I mean, it's a fairly simple matter. It seems to me that the Ohrid Agreement has some requirements, and Macedonia has been implementing them, and I think should continue to implement them. I mean, the simple fact of the matter is that there are 2 main languages in Macedonia. It makes it's not easy to run a country with 2 main languages, but lots of countries manage it, and I think Macedonia has actually been managing it pretty well. So far as the representation government of Albanians is concerned, I mean, that's a consequence of the coalition negotiations. That's a political question for me, not a juridical one. And the fact of the matter is that one of the reasons that DUI did not succeed in the last election, let's put it that way, is that it had been quite strong in the last government, and that was somewhat resented. It held a number of very important positions. And look, Macedonia has a great record of alternation in power. And the one alternation that hadn't occurred yet was on the Albanian side of the equation. Now it's occurred, and if the voters are unhappy with the representation government of the Albanian parties, they'll vote for somebody else next time around.
Do you think it would be a setback for the rights of Albanians if the Constitutional Court follows the recommendation of the Venice Commission on the law of languages, especially in the part about its use in the judiciary?
Well, look, the Venice Commission has a much clearer view of these things than I have. But these are practical questions that it seems to me can be resolved. The notion that the Americans are worried about these things is not true. I mean, the truth of the matter is that American attention is someplace else at the moment. And we need to conserve American attention for things that matter in a big way. And frankly, in the Balkans right now, the things that matter in a big way are the relations between Kosovo and Serbia, and the relations between Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. In both cases, the current Serbian government, the current Serbian president, pursuing the policy of creating the Serbian world. And that is destabilizing for the Balkans.
The Macedonian government interpreted the letters as a continuation of DUI's reactions after the change of government. Do you believe that DUI has the power to destabilize the country, and can they find an understanding of their demands on the issue of legitimacy with the US and the EU?
DUI is in opposition, and it's pursuing a vigorous opposition, making its positions clear, and that's what it should be doing in this situation. I mean, a vigorous opposition is a good thing, not a bad thing. And the government needs to react to that as what I think it is, which is basically a statement by a loyal opposition that wants to get back in power and is putting itself on record with the internationals and with people inside Macedonia that it has some vigorous criticisms of the current government. All of that, to me, is completely legitimate. I don't mind receiving letters from Ali Ahmeti. I don't mind receiving letters from the government. This is all consistent with reasonable democratic practice. It should stay consistent.
Can DUI find an understanding of their demands with the United States and the European Union?
I don't think they'll find much more understanding than what I've just expressed. You know, I don't think the EU or US will be much inclined to intervene, even verbally much, except with regard to the Ohrid obligation. The internationals have a very definite interest in, and they may be more vigorous about that than about the other two issues. But you know, let me make it once again clear. DUI is well within its rights to try to draw international attention to the issues that it's conducting opposition on, and that's a good thing, not a bad thing. And I would expect if one day the current government coalition powers are out of power, that they'll do the same thing. In fact, I know they did, because I had visits from them in Washington criticizing the government that DUI was part of.
Professor Server, Macedonia is still in the waiting room of the European Union. Do you expect some kind of a solution between Skopje and Sofia? And do you think constitutional amendments with delayed effect, as the Macedonian government is proposing, are possible?
I think this is an entirely soluble problem. Frankly, in private, I don't meet a lot of Macedonian politicians who have a problem with inserting the Bulgarians into the Constitution. There's a lot of people in the Constitution. We can have another one. The real issue is that they want this to be the last demand of the Bulgarians. They don't want to face some other demand just before accession. And that, it seems to me, is a perfectly legitimate concern, that there be no more vetoes by the Bulgarians, who've tried it several times successfully, more or less. It slowed down the Macedonian accession process, and that's not a good thing. Macedonia should be moving along as quickly as possible. Eliminating the possibility of a future Bulgarian veto on some other issue seems to me a perfectly legitimate concern on the part of the current government, and I think, frankly, the past government would have had the same concern. The concern's not about mentioning the Bulgarians, it's about making this the last veto issue.